Hi, everyone. This is April Cox. We have special guest speaker today, Brian Meeks, on the topic of analyzing and adjusting Amazon ads for maximum performance. Many of you know as the master genius who's written the Mastering Amazon Ads and Mastering Amazon Descriptions. I feel like as an author, those were a couple of the go-to books that I got started with before I started with Amazon ads. And it's always being recommended. It's an awesome read. And I am so happy to have Brian with us here today. Welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Generally, how important are Amazon ads? And as a general overview from a marketing perspective, how much should they take up of our time and effort as a new author or when releasing a new book?
That's a very good question. The question, when you add to it new authors, changes a bit differently. I would say that Amazon ads, or there's certainly other venues, BookBub and Facebook, are critical to an author's success. That being said, if one is a new author and depending on their plan for production, if a new author is doing like I'm doing with this epic fantasy series, where they're writing every single day, they plan to write 10 books over the course of a year, that is different than an author who maybe is new and will produce one book a year. And this is an important distinction because if you're new and you don't have any sort of readership, then it will be a challenge to run ads on any platform profitably for a single book, even if it's priced at what I consider to be full price $4.99, because you have limited margin. Now, this is an important point. I'm not stressing that you should try to write 10 books in a year. It's not something I would have tried in 2010 when I began as an author, because there were so many things to learn about this business that I had to spend energy learning, which is why everyone's here today is learning about Amazon ads. But once you know some of that stuff and you can turn your energy just to writing, it becomes easier to produce more books in a year. So I don't want anybody to be discouraged and think, oh, I have to write that many books. I have a very good friend who produces one book every 9 months, and she's making 6 figures a year. She's only got 4 books out. She's done that over about 3.5 years. And so it is entirely possible to start out moving a little bit more slowly and then speed up over time. Now, back to the Amazon ads. If you've only got one book and you don't think you'll have another book for a year, you might be best served to just focus on writing, because while we all want that first book to do great, the realities are once you have a second book and a third book, it's easier from a marketing perspective because of something called read through. Read through is simply a person buys your first book and they enjoy it. So then they go read the second book and the third book. But you don't have to pay for more clicks on AMS ads to get those second and third reads, because they're reading through, which means your margin is higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so that was a really long answer, but I want people listening to understand that some of you may only have one book, and it's always a good idea to maybe dip your toes into AMS so you can learn about it. It'll be more of a challenge to make a profit, and you may have to move really slowly, in the sense that we're going to talk about setting up the ads, and one of the challenges is scaling. So we'll just come back to that, and
Okay.
I'll give a suggestion for people that maybe just have one book. You can run some ads and bid really low, or find the keywords that don't cost as much. You won't get as much traffic. It won't drive a ton of sales. You won't get rich by any means, but it will keep people occasionally trickling in. And if you're doing it at a low enough cost per click, you could still make a profit with just the one book. And so I want people to understand they should always keep an eye on profitability, because the goal isn't to sell books and lose money.
Right.
The goal is to make money so that you can pay for more editing, more covers, all that stuff. So
Now, Brian, when we're first starting out, I've heard kind of conflicting information. At first, they tell us when you first set up your ad, leave it alone because it's not going to do much. And if you start
Yes.
playing around with it, it's going to cause issues and it's not going to be as effective. So could you comment on that?
Absolutely. One of the issues with AMS ads is that some ads never turn on. And I want people to understand that when you get to a point where you found a bid that works well for you, all ads die. So your ad may have been running along nicely for 3 weeks, maybe a month and a half, and then all of a sudden it dies. Well, that's natural. That they all die at some point, unless you have grotesquely overbid. If you want to bid $1 a click, that ad will run for a long, long time. But you better have a dozen books in your series with great read-through because you'll lose money. That being said, if you're bidding correctly and finding sort of that sweet spot, then your ad should die. It should die after 5-6 weeks. It may die after 2 weeks. It's completely natural, no need to panic. And what we do at that point is we don't try to keep that single ad running. These are not your children. Don't fall in love with an ad. You just terminate it and write a new ad. So I want you to imagine you've written an ad, it gets 100,000 impressions, does pretty well, then it dies. Mm-hmm. That's fine. Kill it, write a new ad.
When you say dies, it just, stops getting impressions?
Yes. So let's say you have an ad that's getting 20,000 impressions a day for 5 days, and then it drops to 1,000. It has died. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That absolutely happens. Kill it and write a new ad. I always advise people not to use the copy button because that's only saving you 90 seconds. And until you've written thousands and thousands of ads, you need to practice at copywriting. So I encourage people, they don't listen to me. They use the copy button over and over. I had a guy who, you know what? Let's just set up an ad. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
And I'll walk through the basics and then touch on these things as we get to them. So
that sounds wonderful. Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so when you go to start an ad, choose your campaign type.
Yes. Let's
start with this: sponsored products and lock screen ads. We're going to focus mostly on sponsored products because that's what everybody loves to run. Lock screen ads used to be called product display interest ads. I have spent over $45,000 on product display interest ads. They have become, since they changed them to lock screen ads, I'm not seeing the same results. And so I want your folks to focus on sponsored products. So here's the thing. We click continue. Pretty simple. Now we need to pick a campaign name. At this point, if you folks are out there are listening, but you're also watching Facebook or you're playing with your cat, pay attention right now and take notes because this is important. Campaign name. It will make your life moving forward easier if you have a naming convention. And that is simply a way that you name your ads all the time that prevents you from having the same name twice. You don't want that, but also gives you a little information. So I'm going to run an ad for Henry Wood Detective Agency. I'm going to run it for the first book in the series. So I start all those ads with HWDA, Henry Wood Detective Agency. And this will be my first ad that I'm running for Henry Wood Detective Agency in September. So we will go Henry Wood Detective Agency, CPT, 2019, and then I'm going to do auto targeting. So auto, and I'm going to bid 0.30. So I can then look at this ad, the name, and I have some good information, which when you're new to this, you'll only have a handful of ads and you'll remember all of this stuff. When you have written hundreds of ads, it will be really handy to take the extra step to put in some information. Oh, there's one other thing I do. I left it out, A. And A just simply tells me that this is the first ad that I've run for Henry Wood Detective Agency in September.
Okay.
So, portfolio, you can group ads together. That is something that it's just muddying the water for you new folks right now. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's a handy feature, but let's just do no portfolio when you're a beginner. I don't put an end date on it. My daily budget, I'm going to do $50. Now, I know from experience that at 30 cents, I'm not going to spend much of that budget. I'm not worried about that. If it should spend the whole budget at 30 cents, I know because of my read through that this book converts at about 1 in 8. So I'll spend $2.40. I know with the read through revenue that a new reader is worth around $7 or $8. So this will be profitable. If any of your readers don't understand what read-through is, I can explain that later. So we got a name, we got their daily budget. If you're new, start with $10, start with $5. You don't need 50. This is just the way I run my ads. So I hope that's clear that.
Yep. Brian, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
You absolutely may.
You started at 30 cents. Is that something that you just know that that's a good one for your specific books?
Yes.
I've seen so many different, start at 8 cents, 6 cents, 14 cents. There's so many different words out there about, or advice about where to begin.
This is absolutely a number based on what I know of my data. And for everyone else, and that was a great question, you should start low with the expectation that the first set of ads will maybe never turn on, and that's okay. In fact, a woman that's in my class reached out to me and she said, I did as you asked. I started my first set of ads. She ran 3 or 4 ads. I think it was 4. She bid the suggested bid. And I think we had an ad at 16 cents. We had another one for her box set at 18 cents, one at 20, and then I just don't remember what the 4th one was. But we came up with a mix of automatic targeting, manual targeting, which we're going to show you in a moment, and a couple different bid points. The idea being is with the first set, you want to start out low to see if they turn on. And if they don't, you then kill those ads. And when I say turn on, I would give them a week, and she did. And after a week, there were very few impressions. So we terminated all of them. She ran another set for the same first book in series, same combination of auto targeting, manual targeting, and her box set. And we upped the bids by a couple cents. In the second week, her ad that was at 26 cents in the first day got 26,000 impressions, which was more than the first 4 ads had gotten over an entire week. So she found her sweet spot very early on. Every genre is different. I know a woman who writes books and nonfiction teaching people how to play the ukulele. Her cost per click is really low because there aren't that many ukulele instructional books competing for clicks. So everyone will have to find their own bid. Now, I'm going to do auto targeting on this one because the first ad is you want the first one to be easy. Auto targeting, they pick your keywords. Okay. Now, this section here, this is another section where if you stop paying attention and you're looking at cat pictures on Facebook, focus on this. There's 3 choices. Dynamic bid down will lower your bids in real time when your ad may be less likely to convert to a sale. Okay, first off, I struggle to believe that they know that there's a time when conversions change. I've never seen conversion rates change at different times. That seems unlikely to me because how do they know before an event happens? So before somebody's fingers over the mouse and they're about to click, and Amazon is saying that before anything happens, they know it's less likely to convert. That doesn't make sense to me. But regardless, dynamic bid down. So you do a bid and they will potentially lower your bid. Dynamic bid up and down. Don't use this.
Okay.
The middle one, just everybody write that down. Don't use it because what that means, will raise your bid by a maximum of 100% in real time when your ad may be more likely to convert to a sale and lower your bids when less likely to convert to a sale. This is the reason that ads, the cost per click have skyrocketed because most people are so worried about, will the ad turn on? They just want it to work. And they don't care about the fact that if you're bidding 30 cents, like I did here, they're saying, we'll just raise it by up to 100%. So they're going to raise it to 60 cents if they feel like it. Well, it's 60 cents. I mean, that's a big difference. There's a lot of people that can't make a profit at 60 cents. Mm-hmm. This book might make a slight profit, but I don't want them doing that because what I've just told you, you start low, you put in a bid. If it doesn't work, the next ad you run should be 32 cents. So if this one doesn't work at 30, then I'll run another ad at 32 cents. I'm not going to go straight to 60 because the sweet spot, it is very unlikely to be all the way to 60 cents. You're going to lose a ton of money if you use dynamic bid down. So don't use dynamic bid up and down, no matter what. Fixed bids, this is good too. I like the fixed bid. You know what you're getting. I use fixed bid sometimes, dynamic bid sometimes in an effort to try to understand if one is superior. I say test it out. I haven't found anything conclusive, so I'm not going to recommend one or the other. Now, adjust bids by placement. This is another terrible thing. Top search first page. I know, I mean, we barely got into the ad and I'm throwing a ton at you folks, but I want you to understand that this is just another way to bleed money. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to grab Amazon here. So this is Dragon's Fury, my epic fantasy. We'll scroll down here to some ads. These are also bots. They're not paid for. These are sponsored products related to this item. So all of these are ads. If I click on any of these books, this person will have to pay for the click. Now, Michael Andale, I'm not going to click on this book because he lives in the same building as me. He's actually 4 floors up, and I don't want to make him pay for a click. Now, to get this first spot, though, is very expensive. Now, it may not be expensive if you're bidding on Brian Meeks, but if they got here through Dragon or Epic Fantasy, different keywords can end up in the same place. And so no idea what this will cost them if I click, but these early ones are all probably pretty expensive. Now, here's a concept you're probably not going to hear other places. Don't worry about being on that front page. I know that goes against conventional marketing wisdom, but, and this, I see this a lot in romance and in smaller niches. If there's 1 or 2 authors that are overbidding, then their books will show up in this first spot all the time, which initially is probably great for sales. But now I want you to think from the point of the view of the reader. And I hope this concept will stay with you. If I'm a reader and I consume a lot of romance books, then the chances are at some point, those first 2, 3, 4, maybe the whole first page, I've already read. So that means that now this page is no longer of interest. Romance readers consume 5, 6 books a week. So if they've read all of the books on this first page, paying to be on that first page is expensive. They probably go to the second page. So it's not nearly as expensive. These clicks, because they're further down, and maybe the third page, they're not going to cost nearly as much. So going back to here, spending money to try to land on that page will likely be so expensive you won't make a profit, and it may not be as valuable as perceived. So we're going to do dynamic bid down. We're not going to increase our bid to try to land on the first page. Custom text ad, standard ad. The standard ad is simply one without any text. Custom text ad allows to add text. I want to add some text to my ad for Henry Wood Detective Agency. And so let's continue on. Now, product, you have to pick your book. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add Henry Wood Detective Agency here. I will then go automatic targeting, suggested bid. They are suggesting I bid 80 cents. Well, 80 cents would cost me about $6.40 to get a new reader. That's going to be break even at best. The default is 75. I'm putting in 30. Don't feel like you have to listen to this. A lot of people, especially new people that are starting out, that don't know what to do, their first few ads, they just follow and take Amazon suggestions and they get crushed. They absolutely lose a ton of money. Okay, so we need to write some text. Okay, there we go. It can be whatever. I do a lot of copywriting. This is an okay copy. At this point, new authors to AMS ads will sometimes be pretty stressed out about their first copy. Don't worry about it. The copy here just gets them to click, and while you want it to be as good as possible, we only pay for the click. So if you have bad copy, you don't get that many clicks, that's okay. You'll just write a new ad. You'll be fine. But let's try another bit of copy. Yeah, there you go. So again, I don't know which one would be better, but it's not that important to stress out about it. So we've got our default bid, and we are ready to submit. And that's it. That is all you do to launch a campaign. I'm going to hit launch, and then we're going to write another one. We'll go to Campaign Manager, and we will create campaign.
Brian, I noticed that you skipped over end date, and I had heard from others that having an end date sometimes helps Amazon pay attention to your ad. Do you agree with that, or have you?
I have not seen any mathematical data to support that, but if somebody has told you that and they would like to share their data, their statistically significant data that shows a difference, I believe in statistically significant data. And I haven't seen that, but you know what? You could certainly put an end date in there and see how that works. Test it out. Understand, though, that to draw a conclusion, you're going to want to have, say, 100 ads with, 100 ads without, 30 or 40 million impressions in each group, and then you'll have enough data to compare. I don't think most people are patient enough to do that sort of analysis.
Right.
Now, that's what I do. I've had my own ads. I've had over 100 million impressions. I've had 600,000 clicks last time I looked. I had a client last year. We pushed him over 100 million on a couple thousand ads. So when I study something, I have statistically significant data. If you run an ad and do it one way and then run a second ad and do another way, and one outperforms the other, you can't draw a conclusion that it was because you clicked end date.
I see.
I hope that makes sense to folks.
Yeah.
People draw conclusions without really understanding statistical significance. Anyway, we're going to run another ad really quickly because we want to show the ad that most people use, Henry Wood Detective Agency. And this is September 019, and this is ad B. And this will be manual. And we're going to bid 32 cents on this one just to be different. And you know what? We'll put in an end date. Why not? Let's do an end date of December 31st. Daily budget, we'll do $20 on this one. You know what? Now I always do 50. Okay, manual targeting. Do we have any questions thus far?
I was just going to say, we did have one question from Megan asking, I think it's about whether the daily budget and the bid are connected. She's saying if you start at $5 daily, how many cents bid would make sense? I don't know that those two are connected, but I want to let you reply.
They're not connected. If you bid $1 a click and you have a budget of $5, you'll maybe get 5 to 7 clicks, probably coming in at 75 cents a click, and that's probably not enough to get a sale or a new reader. So you can think in terms of what am I hoping for per day? It is a good idea to sort of understand that at $5 a day, that may not be enough to yield a new reader. Again, it depends. If you're writing ukulele books and you're getting really low cost per click, then $5 might get you 30 clicks, 40 clicks, and maybe that's enough for a couple new readers. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers the question. It is worth thinking about, but I wouldn't say the budget and the bid are necessarily connected. Okay, so everything's the same, except instead of automatic targeting, I chose manual targeting. Now, custom ad text, I like that. We're going to add our book. And bidding, we'll keep it dynamic down. And now this, we're going to do 32 because I just am doing something a little different. Suggested bid is 37. Bid range, 8 cents to 111, which that's kind of interesting that this is the same book. And the last one was 44 cents to something really high. And the suggested bid was 80 cents. So
yeah, 80.
It is interesting that there's such a difference. But here, with it being all the way down to 8 cents, this is where earlier I had mentioned if you're somebody that's new and you don't have a lot of money and you don't have several additional books to get read through, so your margin is thin, you might want to go with 10 cents. Now, at a 10-cent bid, you may not get that many impressions. But if you get a click, it's going to be very inexpensive. And so it won't be the way to riches, but if you've only got the one book, it doesn't cost you anything to have ads on with a low bid when a click comes through. That just might get you a reader. You never know. And if 10 or 20 of them come through, that probably is going to get you a reader, and it didn't cost you anything. Is it as exciting as getting lots of clicks every day? Absolutely not. But if you're new and you only have one book, there's no reason you can't bid really low, because what if you happen on a keyword that works for you? So, okay, now let's go back to 32. And then we need to enter. So it's suggesting a bunch of keywords, which, I mean, like mastering Amazon ads. Well, this is because of these are my nonfiction books. So I don't want those, but it's easier to add all and then go in and remove some. So Henry Wood Detective Agency, it's saying that I need to bid $1.46 to $2.99 for my bid. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. Henry Wood Detective Series doesn't have anything. Henry Wood, it's suggesting 47 cents. The point here is you've got all these suggestions and you don't have to follow them. Brian D. Meeks, it says to bid on my own name is 52 cents. I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to change that to 10 cents, because if they're searching on my name, they probably already know what they're doing. Now, Amazon advertising, I don't want that one. Authorship is a keyword that I use for my nonfiction. I don't want that one. AMS ads, I don't want that one. Amazon marketing service, also not there. Brian Meeks, ads. Last 2 years, I've sold a lot of books for ads, so I'm removing all these. Brian Meeks misspelled. We'll do that at 10 cents as well. Mastering AMS ads, ladies, detective agency. Okay, so this one, I don't know if you've ever read the books. The number 2 ladies, or the number 1 ladies detective agency, delightful series. I would love to get clicks from people that like that. Underwood, Scotch and Rye is one of my books. Put 10 cents on that. Oops. Okay. And so I'm just removing all the ones that are unrelated to anything. And book 1, that's with 1, no book. See, some of these, when you see ones that are one would, there are ones that Amazon will use. Perfect example is book, book, book. If you see that, you want to remove it because that is a junk keyword where they dump things in when people search on something that is either so poorly misspelled or it's just not a keyword that anybody has. They will dump it into book, book, book. So you might get lots and lots of impressions and some clicks from book, 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 but it doesn't necessarily mean it's anyone targeted trying to find your romance novel. I mean, they may not even be looking for romance or your historical military thriller. They may not be looking for that. They could be looking for something entirely different, a blender, and they just happen to still have it on search in Kindle. And for whatever reason, it got dumped into that. So that's Detective Siri. That's just...
Do you use any type of analytic tools to come up with your keywords?
Yes. Okay, so let's add some keywords and talk about that. So we can enter keywords as well. Now, there's 3 types: broad, phrase, exact. I'm going to recommend that when you're starting out, you use broad. You could certainly use the other 2. They won't get as many impressions, and that's a little more advanced. I think for everybody right now, just broad. So how do you find keywords? The tool that I use is Dave Chesson's Rocket tool, Rocket 2.0, which is fantastic. The difference between manually finding keywords and using KDP Rocket is the amount of time it saves you. Now, I have keyword lists saved in an Excel file. But if your folks are new, they may want to know how one finds keywords. So let's find some keywords. Let's go, and I'm just going to find a handful for this ad, just in the interest of time, because I once spent to build 1,000 keyword list, and that's the most keywords you can have in an individual ad. I once spent 10 hours building it from scratch just because I wanted to see how long it would take versus well under an hour using KDP Rocket. Okay, anyway, let's go detective mysteries. So all I did is a search, and let's see here. Okay, I don't know who this is, but let's go to this and let's see what his categories are. So traditional detective mysteries books, traditional detective mysteries in the Kindle store. This is a great source for keywords. So I'm going to click on it, and now we have the top 100 traditional detective mysteries. We also have the top 100 free. These will be different people from the other one. And so if you're new and you don't want to spend $100 on KDP Rocket, here is a source that will get you a bunch of keywords that match up with your book. So let's take Amelia Price. I'm going to move this over to the side so that I can look at it and then type them in here. So I'm going to put Amelia Price as one. I'm going to put Tim, another, Bo Brennan. Oh, and look at this. It did autofill for me. So I've got 3 from the free, and I'm going to take 3 from the top 100 paid. Let's go Louise. Now, there's 2 things that I typically do. I typically will put these names into KDP Rocket, and then it returns not just their name, it returns their book titles, and it returns similar books. I think it's based on the also box. So you can get 100 or so for, maybe Louise Penny. And that's why it's so quick when you use KDP Rocket. But again, for this demonstration, I'm just manually typing in a few. Now, what I want to do, and this is important because if you forget this step, well, you can always go back into the ad and get them. But the nice thing is if you take those and you have an Excel workbook or the Google free one, you can just create a blank sheet. There we go. And I'm going to paste my keywords that I just found in here. And so now the next time I do an ad, I can just go copy and paste these. So you always want to build it in a place where it's saved. And then I'll put at the top here, HWDA, so I know what this list was for. And going to save you time. So I hope you will remember to save your list once you build it. It says you can add up to 1,000, but this is good enough for the example. So we're going to add those, and then we will scroll down, and these will be at the bottom. Now, what's interesting is the suggested bids. So I'm not going to raise it to 55 or 48 or 51 or 42, but this one is interesting. There isn't anything suggested. So I'm going to go low on this one just because it doesn't seem like anyone else is bidding on that. So why not test it out? Now, LT Ryan, it says I have to spend 232. Well, that's just crazy. 158 to 466. If this is true, it's probably because, I don't know, but I'm guessing LT Ryan is a traditionally published book. Let's go and see. I don't know this to be true, but I'm going to check and we'll see if this is, I stand corrected. Not traditionally published, but is currently ranked 575. So there are just a bunch of authors overbidding. So I'm going to leave it at 32 cents. If I never get an impression, that's okay because I don't want to pay 232. Same with LT Ryan books, but LT Ryan Deadline doesn't have anything. So I'm going to go 10 cents on that and see if I can get some cheap LT Ryan impressions. And that's it. Let's go write some text. You are limited to 150 characters on your text. I have gone 6 over. So if I take when these out, and add an S, when worlds collide, only one person, and I generally wouldn't use the one, but that was how I adjusted the ad to make sure it fit. Let's go ahead and hit launch.
So Sue would like to know if you could explain read through.
Absolutely, Sue. Read through is simply if you've got a series and you get 100 people that buy book one, some percentage of that, it's rare, it would be, well, nigh on impossible, out of 100 readers for 100 of them to like the book so much that they read through to the second book, meaning they got the first book and then they wanted to buy the second book. I have seen read through as low as 30%. Some people, I had a conversation with a romance writer who her read through from book 1 to book 2 was 95%. That is insanely good. My read through, the Henrywood Detective Agency, is about 60%. My satire is 70%. And so that's my typical range on read through. The point being is the more books you have, the more margin you'll have to play with as far as profitability. If you've got 5 books, well, the thing you want to remember is if a person likes your book enough to buy book 2, whether it's 50 out of the 100, 75 out of the 100, or 20, the people that go to book 2, generally 90% of them are now hooked on the series. And they will read book 3, book 4, book 5. So the most important point is getting them from book 1 to book 2. And that's a whole different lecture. I actually have a lecture on my course about optimizing back matter. The back matter is once the book says the end, there's stuff after that. And there are ways to do it correctly to give you the best chance of getting the person from book 1 to book 2. And that's a whole different lecture. And I don't want to go off topic there, but that's read through. Did that answer your question?
Yep, that's
okay,
good.
Very good. Do we have any other questions?
Yes. So Bill says, can you recap how far between book releases to maintain reader interest? Picture books take ages. Remember, this is a group of children's book authors, and picture books are very common with this group.
Yes. Well, in this business, you hear a lot about rapid release. If you want to do rapid release, meaning 30, a month apart or less, and I wouldn't actually suggest going much less than a month apart. That's a whole other discussion too. But if you want to do rapid release, which has some benefit in that there's a thing called the 30-day cliff. The book comes out, you've told your people that are your fans, they buy it, it gets some juice on Amazon, you get a little bit of exposure, and then at 30 days that drops off a bit. Well, if book 2 comes out, then you're getting exposure on that book, and people that maybe haven't heard of your series will then go back and buy book 1. I remember the children's book I bought my niece. Well, she's in college now, but she was children's book age. My favorite ever was Click Clack Moo. I loved it. I love cows, and I like typewriters. So Click Clack Moo was a gift I bought her for Christmas. And I know that author has a lot of books in that series. So if you have a fan base and you have books, then, and you can do it every 30 days, that's great. But as you pointed out with illustrations, in order to do that, you may need to pile up 3 or 4 books before you even publish book one, which is what I did with Dragon's Fury. With Dragon's Fury, because I'm doing rapid release for 10 books, I didn't launch this book until I had written the end on book 5. So I planned ahead because I knew that once you get into rapid release, trying to get through the editing and all that is time consuming. And so if the person is, like you said, if you know how long it takes your illustrators, if you know how many pages it's going to be, and you have a feel for the length of time it takes to get the book ready, and you want to do rapid release, well, it may benefit you to pile up 3 or 4 books or 6 or however many you do in the series. But that's also a really hard thing to do because we want to see our books out there, and illustrations cost a lot of money. So maybe that's not even viable. If you can't do it, then just do the best you can. That's always my answer, is that not everyone can do it rapidly. That's just the way it is.
So going back now, we just submitted the ad. We talked about the fact that, don't want to touch it for a period of time. So how long should we leave it alone for?
Forever. I don't ever edit ads. And the reason is it impacts your data. I mean, the reason I'm successful is because of my background in data analytics. We know that ads, sometimes they turn on right away. Sometimes they turn on in 3 days or 7 days. Sponsored product ads, usually if they're going to turn on, it will be within a week. But I want you to think, let's say that your ad, you bid 32 cents, and after 2 days you panic and you raise the bid to 37 cents. And then on day 3, it turns on. And then you send me a message in chat and mention that. And then I ask the question, did it turn on because 3 days passed and it was going to turn on day 3 at 32 cents? Or was it because you raised it to 37 cents? And you won't be able to answer that question. Mm-hmm. So if you're in there messing with your ads all the time, the assumption is always, I did this thing and it fixed my ad, and now they write a Facebook post that this is the secret to success and you'll make a ton of money. But that's not always the case. A woman who has taken my course, she has been part of my Facebook group since February of 2017 when I started it. She worked really hard because math wasn't her thing. She didn't like the idea of doing analytics, but she liked less the idea of her books just floundering in mediocrity. So she worked really hard, and I convinced her that you need to constantly be testing new ideas. And once she had done it for a few months, she realized the math wasn't really that hard and she could do it. And so she started to enjoy testing ideas. She would have a theory about something and she would test it and she would do it. And it's great. One day, she posted in my group that she had tried this crazy thing and it had worked. She was so happy. Well, coincidentally, at that time, I was studying Amazon Prime. In Amazon Prime reading, I have learned through study of this thing that 12% of the books that are in Prime reading at some point will show up on this carousel. Pretty much all the books that land on the carousel will, for the time they're on that carousel, be in the top 600. That's fantastic. When you're ranked that high and you're ranked number 1 in all these spots, even though you're not making any money from Prime, you don't get paid reads, you don't get anything. If you get on the carousel and it shoots you up the rankings, these rankings will cause organic sales. And that's where the benefit lies. But as I said, after researching this for a couple months, only about 1 in 12 books land on the carousel. Going back to the story of this woman, because I was studying Amazon Prime and I was looking at all the books, in a couple different genres every day, I was really on top of it. I was watching where they land on these pages. And the thing that she did with the Amazon ads, her test that was this crazy idea, corresponded with the book landing on the carousel. And the carousel shot her up the thing. So she mistakenly thought it was this crazy thing she'd done on AMS ads, but had nothing to do with what she had done. It was that she had landed on the carousel. Point being is you always have to be aware. You should always try to find unique ideas, but if the results are amazing, better than your wildest dreams, you should do a Google search. Did a book blogger on that same day or within a few days happen to mention your book unbeknownst to you? And they have a big audience. There are things that cause huge spikes unrelated to ads. And I just wanted your listeners to be aware that it isn't always the ads. So that was really long-winded, but I felt it was important.
What's your process of how you analyze? Because that'll help us as we're creating ads and going back in and analyzing to
Absolutely.
know what is good performance, how do we know if what we're doing is working, and how do we analyze that?
Okay, that's a great question. Analyzing individual keywords is, in most cases, not advised. Amazon does a horrible job of capturing orders. They are slow to report. They are not accurate. It's slow. So if you're doing analysis and people will say, oh, well, if a keyword has 30 clicks and 0 sales, then I kill it. Here's the problem with that. This doesn't count KU readers. So if your description is properly optimized, which is why I wrote Mastering Amazon Descriptions, it will take 8 to 10 clicks to get a new reader. So if you have 30 clicks, how many new sales should you have? Well, it's a trick question because Henry Wood Detective Agency is in Kindle Unlimited. So I could have 3 new Kindle Unlimited subscribers and nothing will show up on the sales.
Right.
And that's the problem. You can't analyze keywords because we don't know how many Kindle Unlimited readers there are. The other problem, and this is a key point and people just ignore it, but statistical variance. And that is simply, and again, if you're looking at Facebook now, stop and pay attention to this. It's important to understand that to properly analyze a keyword, you probably need accurate data, which we don't have. You need to know how many Kindle Unlimited people downloaded it from that keyword, which we do not have. And you need 1,000 clicks on that keyword, which you do not have. There isn't a scenario where you can properly analyze a keyword and know for sure that you haven't just terminated a great keyword. That's the problem. And so, again, the way you said it for 4 of the children's books, the middle grade books, that is not unreasonable. But for me, I write novel-length fiction. I simply don't analyze my keywords. With the caveat that I'm not picking keywords that aren't relevant. Your keywords need to be relevant. For my Henry Wood Detective Agency, I'm not using keywords like Stephen King. He's more horror or thriller. I might use him for my thriller, but not for my detective. So you do want to start with keywords that are relevant, but devoting time to analyzing your keywords, there are authors that spend hours and hours a week. Take that time and write more books.
So where do you spend your time with analysis? I know that analysis is a big part of what you do regularly for yourself.
Yes. My focus is on the impressions being delivered, because what I like to look at, so I put an ad in and I watch every day how many impressions it gets, because my expectations are that it will have a period where it works, and then, as I said at the beginning, and then it will die. So I'm keeping an eye on the impressions. I'm keeping an eye on the cost per click, because I know that at 30 cents or 32 cents, it's a very profitable click for me. Even if I go 9 or 10 or 20 in a row without a click, I know that on average, it takes only 8. And so I'm watching the cost per click, I'm watching the impressions, and when they start to die off, it's time for me to replace the ad. Once I do that, if I have been doing bidding at a certain level for a period of months, I always want to take an opportunity to test a lower bid. And this is something that people don't do. They get lulled into whatever they find their first bid that works, and they think that that's the bid they have to use forever. A woman who reached out to me back in 2017 was mystery or romance, one of the large genres. And she was spending $9,000 a month on AMS ads. And she was getting in revenue from her sales, both KU reads and paid sales, $25,000 a month. And I saw her bid and I said, why are you bidding so high? And she said, I have to bid that high to get the ads to turn on. And I said, no, you don't. And she didn't believe me. But I talked her into testing some ads where we dropped the bid by a few cents. And you know what? They turned on just fine. And then we did some more ads and she dropped it lower. The following month, once she got down to sort of her new sweet spot, so I guess it would have been 30 days of testing and then she had a full 30 days of using the lower bid, she still spent $9,000, but she was spending 20 cents less per click. So she, instead of getting this many clicks, she got this many clicks. And what did that mean? She had $34,000 in revenue on the same $9,000 spend, because she found out she had been overbidding. So you always want to be testing. Every few months, you should throw up an ad and just see if it does as well at a lower bid. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good.
So some of the metrics that you track, you mentioned cost per click.
Yes.
And did you say click-through rate as well?
Click-through rate is only mildly interesting. People stress out about click-through rate. It's a measure of if you have really good copy. It can tell you a little bit about is your cover effective, but I would never take any action based on click-through rate. Now, if you come from the world of Facebook, click-through rate is the most important metric. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. On Facebook, if you get a high click-through rate, it means a lower cost per click. It's a different system on Amazon. You don't need to stress out about your click-through rate. As I said earlier, I've had over 100 million impressions, 600,000 clicks, and I will take the entirety of my ads and do a statistical analysis called Pearson's, and it's called strength of correlation. You don't need to have a background in stat. It simply means, does a high click-through rate lead to an ad that performs better as far as the amount of impressions that are delivered? The theory being, well, if it gets a high click-through rate, then Amazon's going to love it, and they're going to give you lots more impressions. I've studied this a dozen times and never found a strength of correlation that says click-through rate matters. So relevance matters. If you're writing steamy romance and you're using keywords that are goth horror, it's not going to perform very well. But as long as you're starting with relevant keywords, then click-through rate isn't as important, and it's not worth freaking out about. I keep an eye on it because sometimes you will write a bit of ad copy that is really good, and you want to be aware of that. You'll see a really good click-through rate. I had one piece of copy for my satire, Underwood, Scotch, and Rye, where the copy was more snark than a snarkopotamus in Snarktown on a snarking spree, and that copy crushed it. It had great click-through rate. It had a ton of conversions, which normally I don't talk about conversions on an individual ad. I look at a group of ads. If you're going to run 4 or 5 for a single book, I just care about my cost per click and then how the book is doing in general. But on that one ad, it was clear, because I wasn't running other ads, that my conversion rate was great. And for the next 60 days, a book that is typically a 4.3 average got 24 out of 25 reviews were 5 stars, because the Snarkopotamus ad struck a funny bone, and the people that bought the book are somebody that would laugh at Snarkopotamus, and so it was perfect for them. So it is worth keeping an eye on it, just because maybe you touched a nerve that made people really want the book, and you should be aware of that. But I would never kill an ad because of bad CTR.
Okay. Would your analysis be different if you're not doing KU?
Yes. Well, the threshold is different. As an example, I would expect that a book that is in KU with proper copywriting would convert at 1 in 8 to 110 to 1 in 10. If it's not in KU, a good conversion rate might be 1 in 20 to 1 in 23, because conversions include the Kindle Unlimited folks. So if they're not buying your book because it's not free for them, you won't have as high a conversion rate. And knowing the conversion rate is important when doing analysis, because if you know that your read through, if you put a new reader in, it's worth over your series $12, and you're getting 30 cents per click. If you're in KU and you're converting at 1 in 10, that's $3 to get 15. That's great. If you're converting at 1 in 20 because you're not in KU, well, that's $6, and you're still profitable. Conversely, if you only have 2 books, maybe the value of your series is $4. And at 1 in 10, you're profitable, but at 1 in 20, you're not. So you have to understand your read-through percentages to be able to make informed decisions about whether the current cost per click is going to work for you.
Okay. How do you measure, or how do you come up with what your conversion rate is?
Let me just bring up Excel and we'll just make up some numbers. So let's do Henrywood Detective Agency. And so the first thing you need are clicks. And let's say we're just going to say 200 clicks. Now, I want to stress again, this could be for one ad. This could be for a group of ads. But the quantity for a time period, and let's say this is 1 month. And let's go 1,000 clicks. Okay, so the reason 1 week is too short, if you're in KU, is that people don't have time to finish the book. Now, again, with the books that you folks are producing that might be 30 pages, that's probably not as big a deal. But for me, with Henrywood Detective Agency, I like to always have a month, because The people that came in on the clicks in the first week, they've had plenty of time to get through all the KU page reads. The people that came in the last week, maybe some of them have, some of them hadn't. So you have page reads that come in after the 30-day mark. So analyzing your conversion rate is better with a longer period of time. If you've been running ads for a while and you've got 3 months worth of data, that would be a better sample than 1 month or 3 weeks and so forth. So as long as people understand that, the value of longer time when doing their analysis, that it will give them a more accurate number, that's what's important. You certainly can't do it on a daily basis. Okay, so we've got, say, 1,000 clicks, and let's say sales, we've got 30 sales. Then KU page reads, okay, let's say 34,312. This is just a random number, is the page reads during a 30 months or 30 days. Now, here's where the math comes in. We need to know what the total number of pages a person gets for a complete read. So to find that, let's go into, let me grab another. So we go here. This is your dashboard. You go into the bookshelf. And if you've never looked up your KENPC number, this is where you find it. So we'll find Henry Wood. I know what the answer is. We'll just show you on Dragon's Fury. Okay, so Henry Wood I know is 303. But to find it, you go to Promote and Advertise. There we go. So you click on Promote and Advertise, and then down here, when you scroll down, and earn royalties from KDP Select Global Fund. So this book is in KDP Select, so it is available in KU, and it says that A Touch to Die For is 321. I know that Henry Wood is 303 back on the bookshelf. The reason these books don't have that button is because I've launched the Epic Fantasy series wide, because I want to research wide. So none of these have a KENPC number. Now, we go back to Excel and we put 303 here, which I know is for Henry Wood, how many pages I get for an entire read. Then, when you're doing a formula in Excel, you type equals this number divided by the backslash 303 gets us 113,241. Now, this is an important concept because accuracy matters. You always round up to the next person because you can't have 0.24 of a person. So if 113 people had downloaded this book, well, there wouldn't be 34,312. There would be less because it slightly goes over that. Now, that being said, it is likely there are more than 314 people. So I would take this equals round up. And you don't have to actually do this in Excel. I mean, rounding up is pretty simple. But we go there, comma 0. So we round this number up, and the number we want to use in our math is 114. Again, this is the least possible number of people that could have downloaded this book and obtained this number of page reads. So then we add the two together, equals this, which is our sales, plus this, 144. If we take that equals that divided by the total number of new readers is 1 in 6.94 clicks to get a new sale. And that's, I made these numbers up, but that's pretty close. Henry Wood is 1 in 8. So this is probably, we'll say 27,000. And as far as guessing goes, that's pretty good. But here's what's important. The point is, of the two metrics, most of the readers came from page reads.
Right. And
that's important to understand because, well, it's not as important for you folks because you write illustrated books and you probably have many more people who buy it than do it through KU, but you still want to know what the distribution is because I have no idea for middle grade books. Mm-hmm. But I would like to know, is it 80% buy it, 20% KU? When you have that number, it really helps in determining your game plan. So does that answer your question as far as how to calculate the conversion rate?
Yep, that's great. So tell us more about this class of yours.
Okay, well, I honestly, I love my class. It is fantastic. It focuses on the skills that one needs to do well in this business. And I use air quotes, AMS class, but the talking about AMS is not so much, well, it's none of the basics. I don't even tell people how to set up an ad because I assume that if you're taking the course, you've already read my book and you know how to put in an ad. It's about doing analysis. It's about understanding and answering questions. What if I have a long series and I have first book in the series free? Can I advertise a free book and do it profitably? And I have an entire lecture on a test I did with a gentleman with an 8-book series. And in order to do the analysis, this was some high level analysis. This wasn't the 5th grade math. I needed to use a 21-day moving average. It was incredibly complex, but I broke it down into, I think, reasonable images, graph images stuff, so people could understand what you need to look at if you're going to try that test, first book free, and watch read through, and how long it takes, because it took 45 days to really be to a point where I was confident that our test had worked. And so I talk about description writing. I mean, I wrote a whole book about mastering Amazon description. I talk about back matter. I'm now adding to the course Facebook ads. And the Facebook ads will be starting off from the basics, because I haven't written a book on Facebook ads, so I don't have any expectation that people have read that. But it's a high level stuff where learning the art of copywriting, understanding how to think like an analyst so you don't make decisions that cost you money, or worse, decisions that kill something that was making you a ton of money. So that's what the course goes into. This is the course. You go to www.teachablecom. So Meek's Masterclass, an author's guide. The important part of this course is that I am focused on trying to teach people analytics, and I've got some tools in there that are designed for just doing sort of what-if analysis, for watching things when you make changes early on. Like this tool is like you start an ad or a group of ads, and you watch your data every day, and you can just type in some numbers in here and get a feel for how it's doing, which brings me to another point in analysis. Keep in mind that the analysis is always pass-fail. If you're looking at your numbers and you think you're getting an ROI of a return on investment of 50%, well, that's fine. Is it as good as 82%? No, but it's a positive ROI. So you should keep doing that thing until such a time as you find another method of advertising that outperforms. And then you ask the question, can I spend my budget on the other thing that is now 95% return on investment? Say you're new and you have $100 a month to spend, and you're spending $100 at a 50% return on investment. That means you spend $100 and you generate $150 in sales. So you're $50 to the good. But then you find this other thing, and you're spending $100 and you're getting $195 back. Well, that's better. But what if the other thing, you're unable to spend as much money as you would like? As in your example, you were struggling with that ad that you were running. It wouldn't spend your money. So if you can't spend all of your budget on the higher ROI, then you spend what you can, maybe $10, but you spend the other 90 on the lower ROI, because both of them mean you get more money back at the end of the day. And so that's how to think like an analyst. That's the sort of thing that I talk about here. I built something called a what-if tool. And this is to help people who maybe they haven't launched their book yet. Or like Bob, I think he said he had 4 books saved up. And so he doesn't have a read-through number. He doesn't have any data to make reasonable decisions.
Right.
I was in the same boat with my epic fantasy series because I had 0 readers on my list. It's a brand new genre for me. I'm going wide. So I created this calculator to do what-if analysis. Now, I know now, because I have a little data, that I convert at 1 in 10, which is 10%. So I put in my conversion rate here. I run different ads, and they have different costs per click. Now, these numbers, the spend for a period of time X, which could be a month, it could be a day, it could be a year. It doesn't matter. You just need to put in a number. So let's say $1,000 for a month. If you were getting 30-cent clicks, and your conversion rate was 1 in 10, and you were spending $1,000 in a month, that would be 3,333 clicks. If you were getting 25-cent clicks, it would mean 4,000. So this is not real results, it's what-if data. Now, I ran a test recently where I put the book down to 99 cents because I wanted to test if that converted better on Facebook ads than a $4.99 book. So my revenue from the first book is only 34 cents, which means that even though if I assume, so this is your read through. We talked about read through.
Got it.
You need to put in numbers here. And if you've never published anything, you don't know what these numbers would be. I have published enough fiction that I know worst case scenario, I'm going to get 50% read through. I might get 70%, and we'll change that number in a moment. And then after that, probably 90% the rest of the way. Well, note, if I get 1 in 10 on 4,000 clicks, I get 400 sales. But that means that out to book 10, which will come out in March, I'm only getting 84 people because 90% each time it drops a little bit. Maybe if I change this to 98%, I add that in here, then that changes and it jumps to 152. So it allows you to be conservative or looking at what if I do this, what if I do that? Well, here, with a 10-book series that I haven't released, knowing what I know about my historical performance of other books that I've written, I can put in these numbers and find out that at 25 cents cost per click, which actually happened in my test in both Canada and Australia at a conversion rate of 1 in 10, that when the read-through starts to happen to book 2 at 50%, I'm still losing money. But when they start to get to book 3, I'm at 45% ROI. When they get all the way out to book 10, I'm at 33%. And this illustrates how valuable having more books in the series would be. It also shows the value in back matter. Because if I do my back matter and have it optimized, and let's say that right now, today, it's 50% read through. And this is the number we want to keep an eye on when we're doing our what if. People don't understand the value, how important back matter is. And again, I have a whole lecture on this in my course. If I get my back matter from 50% to 60%, look what that does to the ROI, 333 to 417.
Wow.
Every point, even just 1.61. Every little point you can do it. So maybe just changing one little thing in your back matter can mean a lot of extra profit. And that's a low time cost change compared to changing a cover. You can change a back matter in 20 minutes.
I've heard you reference the term back matter, and that's something that I don't understand. And Bill also asked, can you provide a quick recap?
Now, as far as back matter, that is, honestly, I don't know what back matter is for middle grade books, but the idea is when you get to the end of the book and it says the end, the next page has something maybe about the author, maybe it has a preview of the next book, maybe it has a list of other books by that author. There are lots of things that can be in back matter. And I studied it and kind of came up with a plan that helped improve the back matter, meaning moving the read-through rate up. And so that's what that lecture talks about. So it's the stuff after the end.
Got it. Bill says, Brian's enthusiasm is tops. Everybody's saying thank you. We appreciate your time so much and got so much out of it. So this is going to be one that I'm going to be reviewing on and pausing and doing some things and going and reviewing some more and pausing and taking more notes. So thank you so much for allowing us to record this. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
If somebody out there isn't ready for the class, and you may not be, the one recommendation I can make that will benefit you the most is my book, Mastering Amazon Descriptions, about the art of copywriting. Because copywriting, you use not just for your description, you use it for your newsletter, you use it for interaction with fans. That's the best $10 you can spend as far as if you're interested in learning more about the stuff that I've done, is start with the Mastering Amazon Descriptions. And if you already have read that or are ready for the course, then go that route. But I want to make a plug for that book because it
absolutely.
does help.
And the Mastering Amazon Ads is phenomenal as well. I do have to admit my eyes glazed over a little bit as we got into some of the analytics. So I'll do better when I go back through it now that I know a lot more about it. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.